And welcome to a new podcast from the Belt and Road Institute in Sweden. My name is Hussein Askary. Today is Saturday, the 21st of June, 2025. Today's webcast is very special given the situation between Israel and Iran following the illegal aggression by Israel against Iran last Thursday, June the 12th. And the ramifications of that attack, and also what is behind it in the larger picture, not simply what the Israel's goals are, but the goals of those who are behind Israel in the larger global picture. We had planned to have this podcast to discuss the extraordinary Trilateral summit which took place in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, on May 27th between China, the ASEAN countries, that is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and the Gulf Cooperation Council. This was an extraordinary summit which was a sign of the times of a shifting global economic and political order. That was before the attack by Israel on Iran. We will have a special guest. We will discuss that summit. We will have a special guest from Malaysia, Mr. Bun Nagara. He's the director of the Belt and Road Initiative Pacific Caucus, and he will join us soon. But first of all, I would like to express some of the views we have on the reasons behind the targeting of Iran beyond what is being discussed generally, which is Iran's nuclear program and whether Iran is close to producing a nuclear weapon or not. So we will come back to that question. It is very clear that at least since 2003, Iran had no intention of producing a nuclear weapon. Its nuclear program is completely civilian. This has been proven not only by the International Atomic Energy Organization, but by the United States intelligence community itself. Since that time until now, until 2 weeks ago, the US intelligence community, their opinion and their assessment has been that Iran was not building a nuclear bomb. This was expressed 2 weeks ago by the Director of National Intelligence of the United States in front of Congress, Tulsi Gabbard, and she said that Iran has no intention to build a nuclear bomb. This is the assessment not of herself, but all the American intelligence agencies, and this goes back a very long time. One way of assuring that Iran never acquires a nuclear weapon was through the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, an agreement which was reached by Iran and the 5+1, the 5 Security Council members and Germany in 2015. It took 7 years to reach that agreement, and it assured that Iran, while it can keep its civilian nuclear program, will never be able to produce a nuclear weapon because there will be international observers inside every Iranian nuclear facility, assuring that Iran does not produce a nuclear weapon. That agreement was canceled by nobody other than President Donald Trump when he became president in 2016. So if there's any problem, it's him to blame if Iran ever acquires a nuclear weapon, although his intelligence agencies are telling him Iran is not about to acquire a nuclear weapon. And this is now President Trump says that the American intelligence agencies don't know what they're talking about, which is a bit funny in a way. So the issue is what if Iran is not close to building a nuclear bomb? What are the real reasons for that? The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he has his own goals. The so-called Zionist movement has its own goals. Both the Israeli Zionists and the American Christian Zionists have their own goals, which are biblical prophecies and so on and so forth. And Netanyahu wants to make sure that the original plan handed over to him more than 20 years ago, it's called the clean break and securing the realm, is to make sure that there is no other power in the region, so-called Middle East, in West Asia, other than Israel. So all other nations, all these major nations like Egypt, Syria, Iran, and so on and so forth, they must be weakened and ruined, and Iraq, of course, so that Israel remains on top and is secure. Now, ironically, that has not made Israel a secure country, as we can see today. So, but this level of thinking is not what the major strategists at a different level think about, and we call them Anglo-American elite, or the people who are behind or want to keep the unipolar world. Then the unipolar world is that the United States and Britain will control the world, and their financial and economic and military interests will be supreme above all other goals of other nations. Now, this is a utopian dream, but it's a very dangerous dream, because the United States is still the world's largest military power, and it can wreak havoc around the world. And the intelligence services of the United States and Britain and Israel and others are powerful enough to create chaos. They cannot win wars, but they can create chaos, as we saw in Iraq, Syria, Libya, Afghanistan, and other places. There is no peace and security there. But the idea is to keep these areas in chaos so other powers don't dominate. And these other powers are, of course, is that Russia, China, and their allies in the global south. Now, this is what really is behind this whole escalation. From the standpoint of the real big strategists in the United States and Britain and some parts of Europe, is to make sure that there is no new world order, that the multilateral world order, where nations like China, India, Russia, and others in the global south have no seat at the table of global governance, that there will be only the unipolar world deciding for other nations how to live, what level of economic development and technological development is there for them. And this is where really the issue is. Iran, and this is what we want to discuss now, has become a key element in the new world multilateral economic order. It has, for many reasons, despite all the 800 types of sanctions imposed on it for 40 years, it has managed to keep a certain stable economic situation, is building infrastructure and integrating its infrastructure and economy with other nations in the global south. Now, Iran is a key element of the Belt and Road Initiative. And many people now are saying the real goal of the attack on Iran is to destroy the Belt and Road Initiative. But not only that, Iran is a key part now of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is a Eurasian security and also economic constellation. Iran became a member of the BRICS nations, together with the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Ethiopia, and also now Indonesia. And there are many other nations who are looking forward to become members of the BRICS. And Iran is, of course, has a pivotal geographical location on the Belt and Road Initiative and the Belt and Road corridors, both the land-based corridor, which I will discuss now, and also the maritime Silk Road, but also on what is considered as an alternative to the Belt and Road by India, which is the Russia, Iran, India, north-south international transport corridor, which goes from Russia through the Caspian Sea to the northern ports in Iran, like the Bandar Anzali. I was there myself as late as last May. I have seen the enormous advanced infrastructure being built there, but also on the eastern part of the Caspian Sea to Bandar Abbas on the Gulf, but also to Chabahar, close to the Pakistani border, and then further to India. That's why Iran has a geographical pivotal role, but also economic role in the whole constellation of what we call the global south. Uh, I, I, I have followed this development for many years. The first article I wrote was in 1996 for the American magazine Executive Intelligence Review, when President Hashemi Rafsanjani, the Iranian president at the time, inaugurated a small railway section between Mashhad in eastern Iran and Saras in Turkmenistan, connecting that part of Asia to West Asia. And then 1 year later, another railway was built from Tabriz in northwestern Iran to the border with Turkey. This was the first big Silk Road article I wrote, and it became also part of the first ever new Silk Road comprehensive report published by the Executive Intelligence Review and the Schiller Institute in 1997. So these developments, and Iran's geographical is adjacent to 9 countries: it's Central Asia, Pakistan, and the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, Turkey, Iraq, the Gulf, the Arabian Sea, the Indian Ocean, and so on and so forth. So Iran has a pivotal role in all these different constellations. Iran has also a huge oil and natural gas reserve, which it shares with Qatar. Part of it was bombed recently by the Israelis. So Iran, as a key component of the whole situation in the Gulf region, in West Asia, is a very important part of this whole constellation. One very interesting event which took place just about 1 week or more before the Israelis attacked Iran was that the first train, the railway line between China and Xi'an in northwest China, arrived in Arpi logistics hub in northern Iran. That this will be a new line of transport on the new Silk Road, the Belt and Road, which is part of the China, Central Asia, West Asia corridor, which we can see now in this animation, which we have created a few years ago, and it's still valid. It's one of the most important corridors, the 6 main corridors of the Belt and Road Initiative. But this train, which arrives in Iran recently, is symbolic, and many people say now this could be a trigger for the Israeli attack. I don't know if that's true or not, but this is just a symbolic aspect of that. But what is important in this whole picture is that China has been playing a bigger and bigger role in this whole region. After the defeat of the United States and NATO in Afghanistan and the very humiliating withdrawal from Afghanistan in August 2021, which I have written about, that you have now what is called in British geopolitics the pivot of Asia, of the pivot of Eurasia, which is Afghanistan and Central Asia. This is getting out of the control of the British and Americans for the first time in more than 200 years, since the Great Game started. And therefore you have a vacuum which was filled by China. Actually, China has a very good relationship with the Taliban, and there are lots of investments in Afghanistan. Central Asian nations and Russia are also building very constructive relations with Afghanistan. And therefore this whole center, this pivot of Eurasia, which the British wanted to keep unstable, was out of the game plan, so to speak. China also managed to get Iran and Saudi Arabia, who were entangled in a very dangerous and bloody proxy war in the region, which is the so-called Shia-Sunni divide. China managed to get the 2 countries to normalize relations in March 2023. And ending like 6-7 years of really terrible, 9 years of terrible destabilization of the whole region. one of the results, because of the war in Syria, we had the problems in Lebanon, and the war in Yemen, which the Saudis and the United Arab Emirates finally realized they cannot win. And therefore, the normalization between Saudi Arabia and Iran was very important. A few weeks before that agreement in March 2023, President Xi Jinping was in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, holding three major summits, one with the Saudi king and crown prince, one with the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, and one with all the Arab countries. And this was a major breakthrough in relations, both diplomatically, but also in terms of economic relations between China and the Arab countries. A comprehensive strategic agreement was signed with Saudi Arabia, but President Xi Jinping offered a large number of cooperation areas, like not only infrastructure, hard infrastructure, digital infrastructure, cloud computing, space technology, and nuclear technology, besides all the clean technology and other things. The Gulf countries, they want to diversify their economies now. They don't want to be reliant on the oil price, which keeps fluctuating, going up and down dramatically, putting them in dire economic and financial straits the whole time. And therefore, Saudi Arabia, the Arab Emirates, even Kuwait and other countries want to industrialize. They want to use their sovereign wealth funds to invest in industries. But to have industries, you need to invest in infrastructure, which is transport, power, telecommunications, and so on. And China is generous enough to offer all these things to the countries. 2 months later, in February 2023, the Iranian president Ibrahim Raisi, visited China and signed or finalized a comprehensive strategic agreement with China for 25 years. And this is one of the most comprehensive agreements ever signed between Iran and China. Iran's relationship usually is naturally with the West, but because their relationship to Russia has been troublesome historically, but also to Asia, they didn't have so much connection to Asia. So these agreements between the Arab countries and China, and Iran and China, and the normalization of relations between Iran and Saudi Arabia was ushering a new era in the whole region's economic and political situation. Now, you remember in 2023, a few months after these developments, President Joe Biden announced from Indonesia during the G20 summit an agreement to build what is called the India Middle East EU corridor as a rival to the Belt and Road Initiative. I wrote at that time about this, that this is political fiction. It's a political project. It's meant to undermine the Belt and Road, but without building any real alternative to the Belt and Road. There will be no railways, there will be no ports, because all the railways and ports are already being built by China and these countries in cooperation with them. So if you want to build something, you have to involve China in this. So therefore I said this was a political fraud, which is meant to derail the whole work which China has been preparing with these countries. In September, Benjamin Netanyahu spoke at the United Nations General Assembly, and he presented a map of the region where in green you had Israel and some Arab countries who were, according to him, willing to normalize relations with Israel, and then the rest was in outside. And there was no map of Palestine. There was nothing about Palestine in that map. There will be Israel and the Arab countries. Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon are also left out of that picture. A year later, he presented the same map, but now he had, after the genocidal war was launched in Gaza, he presented a new map where he has the India, Middle East, EU plan, and he called it the blessing, that this is the new blessing in the region, and then the rest is the curse, which includes Iran, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq. And all these four countries, except for Iran, has been destroyed or under control of the Anglo-American elites and also of Israel. Actually, Iraq is controlled by the United States because all the oil export money is kept in the United States in the Federal Reserve, and the American president keeps that money under the Executive Order 13303, which I have written a lot about. I have discussed this in interviews. So the only one which is left in this black curse is Iran. And therefore, this whole issue now is developing around the problem with the trying to stop the Belt and Road Initiative, trying to stop the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which many nations like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and others want to join, even Turkey, and also the developments around the BRICS nations, and so on and so forth. There's a new world economic order is emerging out of it, but because of the West Asia, Iran and the Gulf countries and Palestine, Syria, are so crucial geographically and strategically that this area have become the battleground for the whole situation. So I believe that this is now the reason, the true reason for the strategists beyond Netanyahu, beyond Trump and the Zionists, that the strategists at the level of people like Tony Blair, for example, and the London and Wall Street financial oligarchy and what people call the military-industrial complex, this is what they are thinking about. This is how important it is to defeat Iran. And the plan is to do a regime change in Iran as a key element in coming back to this pivot of Eurasia, and also to implement plans like the Bernard Lewis plan to divide all these countries, but especially Iran, into ethnic entities. That Iran will be divided into 4 or 5 different, Persian, Azeri, Arab, Kurdish, Baluch groups. And then from there, you move to Pakistan, Central Asia. There are plans to conquer and divide Russia in ethnic and, lines. There are many people in the West who have been talking about, carving Russia, splitting it into smaller pieces, and then China is the big prize. So China will be the final goal of this whole regime change process, which started after 9/11. And whether Russia and China now will intervene to stop that, we don't know. How much they are trying to use diplomatic ways, talking to Trump, talking to the Europeans to find a solution to this madness. But this is where things are going. And therefore, people predict that the whole situation in the Middle East and also in Ukraine will develop into a global war, a global thermonuclear war. So this is the background, which we believe is the reality behind the situation. And as I said, our intention was to have a discussion about this extraordinary summit, which falls into the same framework we are discussing. There's a new constellation of economic and political forces coming together in the global south, and the idea of discussing the extraordinary summit in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia in late May between China, the ASEAN, and the Gulf Cooperation Council